your questions and diving a little deeper. This is the Midweek Rewind.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Midweek Rewind. My name is Matt, and I'm excited to have some time with you today. As always, if you're watching live, happy Thursday to you. And if not, thankful for you listening or watching later in the week. For those of you listening to the podcast, thanks for listening there as well. Got Pastor Brent with us. Hey, Brent.
Hey.
How are you today?
Very good.
Good. Just another day, right?
Hey, I got my sermon done. I got a wedding this weekend. I got the rough draft done for that. So now I can get to the 17 other things I have on my list for today. And so that's great.
Awesome. Well, Brent, this is a big week. We've been waiting for this Sunday for a long time. I know your little catchphrase has been, you can't wait for June 28 or whatever your little catchy little thing is. So it's finally coming. This week, we're finally back in person. And I know you're really excited about that.
I am. I am. And we're going to dive into 3 reasons why it's so good to be back together. And some of it's just friends, being with people, smiles, the energy of finally being back together. But there's some more substantial reasons than that. But I'm looking forward to being back together.
Yeah. It's been a long time. It's hard to believe. Well, it's hard to believe, and yet it's not hard to believe that it's been 15 weeks, 15 Sundays. It's just crazy. It's been a long time. So, hey, if you're watching live, as always, we love to interact with you. So if you have any questions or if you want to chime into our conversation, we'd love to hear from you. So just jot them in the comments right there. I'm keeping an eye on it. We love to hear from you. So Brent, first things first, we like we've been saying, this is the last week or the first week of coming back, last week of online only. So I'm just curious, how has this whole thing been for you now that we're kind of wrapping it up? What have you learned and how are you feeling now that we're kind of on this end of everything?
I don't know what all I've learned. I've learned that decluttering your schedule is a pretty good thing. Mm-hmm. We miss out on a lot of important meetings or interactions, but I have really, during this online, my calendar, the daily grind of all the meetings and meeting with people. And so that decluttering makes you think about what really is important. So that's one thing. As for the online thing itself, mm-hmm. I am so committed to staying relevant as a church. We can bark all we want, Matt, but online church is here to stay.
Yep.
And if a church wants to increase their impact and reach people, they have to do it. And so we've said this multiple times, but I'm really grateful for you and Eric and others who have thrown hours and hours into elevating our online cameras and sound and lighting. And yeah, I'm just all in. We're ordering new cameras and people won't even see them. They'll be in the same place they have always been, but that's coming here in a few weeks. But I am so committed to the online experience and giving people an opportunity to worship, giving people an opportunity to sit under the teaching of God's word. So I'm all in. Okay. Do you know there's a but that's coming?
I do know there's a but coming.
Yeah. But it's not, I'll say this, and people can bark back and go ahead and send a comment. And if you're pushing back against me, we won't even call you out on it. We'll leave you anonymous or whatever. But this is my understanding of the Bible. Online is great. It's a great way to worship. If you can't come to church, it's a great way to sit under good teaching if you can't come to church. But it's not what Jesus intended as the full deal. So I'll get a little bit into this on Sunday. The word for church in the New Testament is ecclesia, and it's not even a religious word. Mm-hmm. It means a group of people gathered together for a purpose. So in Acts 19, it describes a protesting near riotous group of people who have drugged some Christians into the amphitheater, in the outdoor amphitheater in Ephesus, Turkey, and they want to do some really bad things to those Christians. But there's a group gathered for a purpose, and they were gathered together to do some really bad things to some Christians. That's the same word, ecclesia, that Jesus used when he said, I'm going to build my church. It's not a building, it's a group of people. Jesus' intention was that church be with people who are gathered for a purpose. Now, you can stretch that and say, well, I'm online. I'm gathered with hundreds. I mean, we had hundreds of people watching online. So there was an awareness of gathering together. Okay. And so I can't fight or argue, don't want to, with people who say, well, that's the same. That's just not where I'm at. I bless online. We're going to put effort into it. I want to reach as many people however I can reach them. But, one of the things that reminded me of being only online is that it's not where Jesus' heart is. His preference, I honestly believe, is if you can, you should be in the same room, gathered together with other people for a purpose. So, I think online is a great thing for those who need it. Sometimes I struggle with those who do online simply because they want it. They could go to church. They're just lazy.
Yeah.
Okay. But
and
who am I to judge, right?
What's that?
Who am I to judge, right?
Oh, yeah, right. Well, it's also a great first step, I think. I think a lot of people, if they're so that's another important part, is it's a good way to know who we are before you actually walk in the door. But yeah.
And gone are the days. I hope this didn't come across that I'm not in favor of online.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to put more energy into it than ever before.
Right.
It's the full picture. But yeah, gone are the days, Matt, when someone just shows up to church, like in the building, without having looked online first. Everyone watches online now before. That's how they shop for a church, and that's how they decide where they're going to go.
That's
crazy. It's good. We embrace it.
Yeah, it is good. And hey, we got those people watching right now, probably. So church online can be good. But yeah, I hear you, Brent. That's good. All right, so we started last week. I guess it was week 2 of Mind Games series, where you're talking about stress and worry and anxiety and those things that we all struggle with in our minds. And it was this past week we talked about do not worry, and we talked about this kind of a lot, Brent. Like there's a lot of this it's really great advice and it's the right thing to do, but it's hard to actually put it into practice. You said something like, if someone tells you, hey, do not worry, well, okay, thanks a lot for your help, right? But we kind of unpacked that a little bit on Sunday. Do you want to give us a quick recap of that message?
Yeah, it is true, Matt, that it's easy to say something. It's hard to do it. I'm doing a wedding this weekend, and I'm going to say, hey, in 2 seconds, let me tell you how you're going to get to your 50th or 60th and have a good ride. Ready? Follow Jesus. That's it. I mean, it's easy to say that. Right. There's never been a couple that's had a bad marriage, let alone ended in divorce, where they both followed Jesus. I can guarantee you that if you follow Jesus, you'll have a great marriage. I mean, if 2 people follow Jesus. Okay. Easy to say, hard to do. So Jesus says some easy things to say. Don't worry.
Right.
It's hard to do. Now, he did unpack a couple things. We looked at some things we could do, like remember that he cares and he sees and he knows. I mean, it's true, but it always helps when you know you're not alone and that he cares. Now, does that solve everything? No, it doesn't solve everything for me. It helps, but it doesn't get me to the finish line. So then we said a second thing was seek first the kingdom. And we said it's a priority thing. If your primary focus, so you're always worried about something. Let's say you're worried about your money. the world's way to think is to say, okay, let me solve my money problems, then I won't have anything to worry about.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get rid of my cancer, and then I won't have anything to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
So the world's, and a common way for Christians to think is, let me just fix the problem.
Yep.
But it says, seek first the kingdom of God. And it's just a new way of thinking. It's not magic. It doesn't instantly change everything,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to find a better answer.
Yeah.
And in your problems, at least remember that the God who created and did this and did this and did this and did this cares.
Yep.
And in the middle of your problem, don't try and fix that first. If you get it fixed, great. But your first priority is just follow Jesus in the middle of your financial mess.
Mm-hmm.
It will help.
Yep.
Okay. So
I think you said it well on Sunday that a lot of us we're tempted to be problem solvers before we're Jesus followers.
mm-hmm.
I think we all default to that because just in day-to-day life, that's what's easy for us to think about is problems to solve. But I think that's a great perspective to have, that's not actually our first priority. And if you live that way, you will worry less. So yeah,
he will. He never promises, and you wrote this down in some of the notes for today, like in Philippians 4, where it says, take everything to him with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, mm-hmm. and the peace of God. God promises peace.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't promise problems fixed.
Right. Yep. And one thing that was kind of early in your sermon that was interesting to me is that I think it was Timothy, correct me if I'm wrong, but Timothy is kind of applauded for being concerned, but we're not supposed to worry, right? And so that's a blurry line. But I think, we all have concerns. Like if you're alive and you're paying attention, there's probably something you're concerned about. And that's probably wise. That's not foolish or sinful for you to be concerned about something. So, and wasn't that even maybe the same Greek word? Am I remembering right?
Yeah, it's the same Greek word, merimnao. And I think it occurs just under 20 times. Now, 18 times, like 13 of them, it's the bad thing, worry. But there are a few times when it's actually a neutral or a good thing. And yeah, the example I gave was Paul commended Pastor Timothy for his merimnao for the people. He was concerned about their relationships. He was concerned about their spiritual health. He was concerned about their physical health. He was one of these guys that he was really concerned. It's the same Greek word, but there it's a positive. And so our English Bibles have translated it concern. So that's the question. When does something move from I should be concerned about my finances, I should be concerned about my parenting, I should be concerned about whether my kids make right decisions,
mm-hmm.
but I shouldn't worry about finances or my parenting or my kids' decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Figure that one out, Matt.
Well, I mean, you mentioned on Sunday, like usually worry is accompanied by emotion, and concern has emotion too. But is that where you kind of draw the line, where if you can feel yourself getting anxious and amped up and all worked up in a tizzy, is that basically the only difference between worry and concern, or what do you think?
That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm on a journey. I don't know anyone who has the exact answer, because I think it's different for everyone. I don't know. So honestly, I have some things. There's some things at church going on right now. I mean, we're doing great, but there are some things going on at church. I literally this morning, I came in early. I walked into the worship center this morning. It was 6:30. No one's here.
Mm-hmm.
I turned on the lights. I just stood in there and I talked out loud for 10, 15 seconds to Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I literally said, this is the deal. I don't know whether I should be concerned or I shouldn't worry. I just know that there's something in me that's uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. There's a weight. And I said, I want to read my emotions well, and I'm just throwing it in your lap. And then I walked out. I mean, I don't always know whether I'm concerned or whether I'm worried.
Mm-hmm.
I think I often recognize it when I've definitely crossed over to worry, because there I have a knot in my stomach. I think about it all the time. For some people, it's a lack of concentration. It's a loss of appetite. It's a inability to focus. It's a migraine. You can have physiological and, not in your stomach feeling. For me, when that happens, and it doesn't happen very often, I'm not a big worrier by personality. I know when I've definitely crossed over. I just don't know if I've crossed over all the time. Different for each person. I think the little things for some people, I think they're just worry warts out there.
That was my next question. A lot of this, we kind of get to this point where, okay, is it a personality issue, or is it a sin issue, or is it because I know people who are they're worried all the time. There's something they're always worried about, and it's clear that it's a worry, not a concern. So do you think, are people just wired that way, or are some people that's just a sin that they're more tempted towards, or is it both? Probably both.
I wouldn't be bothered. This will sound like a tangent. Okay. My theology wouldn't be threatened if there was an alcohol gene. That some people are born more susceptible to alcohol or addiction. We all have. I think some kids, they just come out of the womb more anti-authority than other kids. We hear all the time, this sibling, this child is compliant. This child fights everything. And Christian or not, I think there are people raised atheists who are compliant to authority and who just have we all have weaknesses and susceptibilities. Some men really struggle with lust. Other men don't struggle with lust. Some men struggle with bad language. Others don't. Some struggle with anger. Others don't. We all have areas where we're more susceptible. The alcohol gene. That doesn't bother or threaten my theology. So yes, there are non-Christians who worry a lot, and there are non-Christians, they have no Jesus in them, but they're easygoing and they worry about very little. So the do not worry command will speak more to those people who, for whatever reason, are more susceptible to it. That's the case for every sin. Don't lie. Some people really struggle with that. Others don't. I don't know why. So, I think a bunch of it's personality. We're all going to be susceptible to some sins more than others. But that list will be different for each of us. I'm not a worry wart.
That makes sense. I don't think I am either. I think I'm tempted to worry in certain things, but I'm not. I don't think I am either. But another thing that I was thinking about on Sunday, Brant, was the verse that you used, the kind of the really famous one about worry is, do not worry, for tomorrow will worry about itself, right? And this always comes to my mind when I hear that verse. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we had the counselors on, because they actually brought that verse up too. So how do you not worry about tomorrow but still be responsible about tomorrow? So like let's say tomorrow, let's say you have to have a really hard conversation with someone tomorrow. You don't want to worry about it, but you also don't want to walk into it without having never thought about it before, or even letting that person know they're having a meeting or whatever. So there's some area of you have to prepare and it's wise for you to be thinking ahead. And there's verses about the fools don't plan for tomorrow. So how do you plan for tomorrow without worrying about tomorrow? Ready, go.
I don't have a good solid answer for that. Part of me said, what if we looked at it with the word control in a good way? So there are so many things that we have no control over. So I hope it rains tomorrow. I have no control over that.
Right.
So let's not worry about whether it's going to rain. Let's
Mhm.
make a decision as best as we can do that mind game. I have no control over that. But if you have a hard conversation and you think through and you say, the wise thing is for me to do this and this and this, and I'm going to kind of prime the pump and I'm going to tell my friend, hey, tomorrow, do you mind if I give you a call here in a couple hours or tomorrow? There's one thing that's been bugging me. Don't worry, but I just want to let you know it's on my heart and I care and I hope it goes well. Okay. So you're trying to deal with the worry of what's happening in the future through the lens of, honestly, what can I control? And if there are some steps you can take today about tomorrow's worry issue, take the steps today because you have some control over it. But so tomorrow has enough worries of its own. And I think part of what that is saying is tomorrow has so many things you have no control over. Don't waste your time today trying to fix or deal with or resolve tomorrow's worries. You don't have any control over it anyway. But if you, not control freak, but if you have some ability to kind of manage a future worry today, you're not violating that verse.
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes I wonder if it's through that control filter. If I have some amount of control over this future worry, this event that's coming up 2 days from now, if I can do some things today to kind of prep and resolve some of that, I can do it. But if I have no control over it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. And I was thinking about that too, that there's a difference between planning and worrying, right? So maybe there's situations where that line's pretty blurry, but hopefully you can plan and maybe even be concerned without going into worry. And then another verse that you mentioned that I think is obviously one that comes up a lot with this kind of topic is the whatever's true, whatever's honorable, whatever's just, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's commendable, dwell on those things. And that's, I think, all of us, if we're worried and if we stopped long enough to think about that, that'd probably be a helpful verse for us to remember. But again, some people just jump to worry faster than others. So
yeah,
when you're worried, Brent, what do you do, or what have you learned anything that kind of helps you get out of that?
Yeah, my number one thing, I'm very verbal. I honestly am envious. I know that's a sin, I guess, but I'm envious of those who can think a thought through in their mind and not be tempted to say it until they've thought it through. I think out loud. That's how I'm wired. It's a personality thing. And so for me, speaking out loud helps me. And so the number one thing I do, it's what I preached on. I say things out loud. So I will say, God, I know you see me, you care. I don't feel it. I feel like you're a million miles away, but I'm declaring truth. You have proved yourself again and again. I do have faith that you're with me. And I'm asking you to like deal with my worry, reward me for believing and speaking that you're with me. And I do want to, if I had the choice between peace or a solution, I'll choose peace because that's the deeper character. I want you to give me peace and take away. So I declare truth. That's my thing. If you've ever been on a sports team and there's some Goliath on the other side and the coach is in the locker room and he says, you can do this. There's a duck movie about that or something.
And Mighty Ducks, best movie ever.
Some Mighty Ducks, pep talk.
Yep.
You are training your mind to face a battle. You're trying to remind yourself. So I give myself pep talks to try and do it. But for me, it's speaking out loud. But we declare truth.
Yep. And earlier this week, we had a staff prayer time, and this is probably going to sound cheesy, but we had a prayer meeting, and then Cynthia was leading the meeting and asked us all to kind of spread out, be silent for a few minutes, and just spend some time in prayer. And obviously these verses were in my mind since we just talked about them. And I was sitting outside the church here, and I just saw like it was quiet and the grass was kind of blowing around in the wind. And I'm like, oh yeah, the world is just fine without me right now. I'm not doing anything. The world's fine. And the grass looks really, really pretty in the sun, and it's blowing along, and it doesn't need me to do anything. And I did a little bit of prep this morning. I didn't get the answer I was looking for, so I don't have it ready. But this morning I Googled, like, how many birds starve? Because you used the verse of birds aren't worried about eating tomorrow, so you don't need to worry either. So I was just curious, how many birds starve? A good answer. But that's just a good perspective that, nature doesn't worry. The world's going to be just fine without you. It's going to be okay. So yeah, it's hard to remember, but it's a good perspective to have.
Sin has, when sin entered the world, it wreaked havoc in every area, relationships and emotions and behavior and selfishness and tornadoes and hurricanes and, and God has chosen to not be a genie whose primary job is to solve our problems. Mm-hmm. He will solve many of our problems. We can solve many of our problems, but his primary goal is our character, our allegiance, our loyalty. And so he wants us to seek him first. As soon as our first priority is a pain-free, problem-free, you better, God, solve all my problems, we're going to spend a life of disappointment.
Yep.
Our primary job is to follow Jesus. Mm-hmm. And the reward of that is peace and joy and courage to get through a world where we're never going to eliminate the problems.
Yep.
That's number one. So
that's really good. Well, again, as always, if you missed the message, I encourage you to go back and listen to it. And Britt, we've got just a couple minutes left here, and we're actually pulling a little bit something kind of different this week. We just started this series, but you're going to take a quick break from the series already. We're going to do a quick 1 week break from Mind Games, and then we'll come back the following week. But since we're back in the room for the first time, I know you had kind of a different message you wanted to do to kind of maybe just give some hope and an encouragement just in these crazy times. So what can we expect on Sunday?
Well, I'm going to answer the question, why is it so good to be back in the room together? And so I'm going to give 3 reasons. If we sat around and brainstormed, we might come up with a dozen reasons it's good to be back together. Mm-hmm. But the third one's going to land on this basic idea that when we gather expectantly, God speaks. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to give what is obviously a word from God, because it's in the Bible, a word he wants to speak to us about hope this Sunday. So, yeah, we're going to answer the question, why is it so good to be back in the big house together? And the third of those reasons is because it's in this house. And God can speak anywhere. He can speak to you while you're taking a bath or while you're driving or you're alone in your living room. He can speak to us anywhere, anytime. But he loves it when people gather in a sacred assembly for a sacred purpose. And part of that purpose is to say, we're listening. And he drops a word onto them. And we're going to drop a word of hope on to our church this Sunday. And so I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Yeah, I am too. I know a lot of people are really excited to get back. So it'll be good. Hopefully have a full house on Sunday. Who knows how many will be here, but I hope it's a lot of people. It'll be good to have everybody back together. So, all right, Brent. Well, hey, thank you for your time today. I know you and I we'll go grab some lunch. And then I got to film you doing some singing and dancing this afternoon. If you're not following us, I guess if you're watching this, you're probably watching on Facebook, but Facebook and Instagram, be sure to watch all the videos we're putting out this week. We're having some fun with some goofy videos and featuring Brent and Kyle and a bunch of other people singing and dancing. So we're excited about Sunday. We're trying to round up some enthusiasm.
On the assembly line of creation. as he was wiring each person, and he's running them down. However God created each of us, we got to the rhythm and movement and danceability. And he said, I'm not giving any of that to Brent. And he just shoved me down. So it's kind of embarrassing. I'm glad I don't have too much pride, but I get nervous when I have to do a video and it involves some kind of say something, sing something, and snap your fingers and tap your foot, because I don't got it. I say, Lord, why? Okay.
I told somebody else earlier, we're going for comedic value, not necessarily artistic value. So be sure to watch the videos this week. We got some fun ones coming your way. So
they're pretty funny.
All right, Brent. Well, hey, thanks for your time today. Looking forward to Sunday, and thanks to all of you watching and listening. Grateful for you as well. You should have gotten a letter, hopefully today or sometime this week, about some of the details about how we're opening this weekend. All that information is also on the homepage of our website. If you go to firstmbchurch.org, if you're curious about some of the details about reopening, all of it's right there. So we hope you come on Sunday, but if you're still wanting to stay online, we'll be there as well. So wherever you choose to join us, we're looking forward to a great Sunday. And then Brent, you and I will be back here next week on Thursday. So thanks for your time. Have a good week.
Have a great week, everyone.
All right. See ya.
Thanks for joining us today. Matt and Pastor Brent go live on the First MB Church Facebook page every Thursday at noon. If you can't watch live, the archive is available anytime on Facebook, YouTube, or the First MB app. If you prefer to listen on the go, you can also subscribe to the podcast by searching for the Midweek Rewind in your favorite podcast provider. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Midweek Rewind.